You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
All right, everyone, welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you, and I'm thankful that you are with us. Gonna have a great show today, as usual. We're glad to be here live at CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio. And we're also streaming at cklu.ca for those that want to just listen to audio on the internet. Joining us from all over the world, as CKLU has had many people checking in, listening from abroad for many, many years. And I know that there's an established listening audience that's been here, like I said, for many years. We've been around since 1984, started in a little trailer on Ramsey Lake Road, and now we are broadcasting from we're in the old Telegraph building, all part of the new McEwen School of Architecture under the umbrella of Laurentian University on the corner of Elgin and Elm Street right here in Greater Sudbury. So welcome if you are from Sudbury or if you are joining us from abroad, either audio. We're also on video at facebook.com/Sudbury News and youtube.com/Sudbury News. Today, we're not sure. Last week, it wasn't available to be broadcasting at Facebook, our Facebook page, but looks like today we are. So as Bill C-11, Bill C-18, the Online News Act, and the response to it by Meta and Alphabet Inc., which is Google and YouTube, respond to our government's request to pay media is what they said it was for. We see the two companies kind of saying, well, okay, we won't allow news to be on social media, and now you have to go find it yourself. Although I've seen it now, a new format on Google where you go on Google and they're sharing news there as well. So you know what? I just know that I don't know anything about how this is all going to roll out and whatever. And so we are just going to continue with our little show on a little station in a little city in a big country with a little population, and try to disseminate the issues of the day through news, whatever news we can get our hands on, whether it's local or it's provincial or it's regional or provincial or international or national or international. We will do our best to try and look at what issues the people here in Sudbury find important and have a conversation about it each and every weekday morning between 7:30 and 8:30 on the radio and live stream. So we have a few people joining us so far. I'll get this back up. It's getting back into the routine, and it looks like it's freezing a little bit, so I don't know. We'll see. We froze last week on YouTube halfway through the show. I was able to stream it through another Facebook page that I had, and then I uploaded that onto our Sudbury News Facebook page. So the show is there in its entirety if you ever want to go back and look at it, and it is there on demand if ever you miss the show. So let's dive right in. We have a few people checking in and saying good morning. We want to get to you right after the weather, so stick with us. We got a great show. We got local stories to talk about after the weather, and then we're going to look into some more national issues. And I know a lot of people are interested in what our Prime Minister is up to, even internationally. So if you are joining us from outside the country, you'll probably find this entertaining, at least, seeing some of the things that are going on in our federal politics as well. So anyways, we'll be back with that and more, and your comments right after this. And Sudbury weather brought to you, as usual, by sudburyweather.ca. It's currently 10 degrees and it's cloudy. Cloudy, 30% chance of showers expected for today with a chance of showers this morning. And the high will be 16. The wind will be gusting up to 40 kilometers an hour early this afternoon. Tonight, clearing. Fog patches developing after midnight. Low of +3 with a risk of frost. Now that's important, right? For people with gardens. Excuse me, with a risk of frost, you want to make sure to do what it takes to either eliminate or try to dispel anything that would happen to your garden if there was a frost, because there's a chance of frost. So anyways, all those gardeners out there, make sure to take precautions from the frost tonight, possible. Tuesday, sunny, fog patches dissipating in the morning, high of 18. That's tomorrow, and the UV index is 5. I'll look at your little bit of long range, sunny and 18 tomorrow. Wednesday, sunny and 21. So beautiful day on Wednesday forecasted. And for the rest, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all mix of sun and cloud. And 23 degrees for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and 21 degrees for Sunday. And let's see if our, so this was yesterday. Let's see if we can get a little bit more of a recent satellite for you. There it is. Oh, we had it. And there it is. Let's see if it'll stop on there. And probably won't, but there you go. It's just going to continue, and we'll try and pause it there, and we'll see what it is. So at 2 a.m., there you go. That's what the satellite looked like. So you had some clouds that will be for a little while there, but all the clearing from the northwest coming in is what we're forecasted to get. A lot of clearing, sunny days upcoming until we get the mix of sun and cloud for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Other than that, we're looking at tomorrow and Wednesday being rather sunny and rather nice. So if you can enjoy it, do so. But if you have a window in your office, you'll be able to enjoy the sunlight through your window. Anyways, that's your Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. We'll be back with local stories, national stories, and your comments right after this. As soon as I find the button. There we go. All right, and we are back. And I just wanted to say that Natalie Labby reached out to me recently, Ward 7 councillor here in Sudbury, and we have had Mike Perron as well on the show, who's said he wants to be able to contribute whenever, we need to kind of get it from the horse's mouth. So he said he's more than happy to come on the show. And so Natalie suggested, since it's been a year since the last election here in Sudbury, it might be good to have a bit of a review of what's happened and how they've found the transition in council here in the city. Any other councillors also are more than welcome to be on the show as well. And all you have to do is reach out to me at sudburynews@gmail.com and we'll be able to get you on. And it's a good platform to be able to speak to people in the city. There's no other platform that I know of where you can just kind of have a conversation publicly. So it's that opportunity for you to be able to do that and find people on like yourselves already checking in, right? Monique, good morning, Sudbury. Thanks for joining us. On YouTube, we're also on Facebook, by the way, today. I'm not sure how long that is going to last, but we are. Good morning, Judy, on Facebook. Speaking of that, hope you're having a great morning. And Belinda, good morning. Nothing lasts forever, not even your problems. Oh, that's really awesome. Those that are experiencing difficulty, which I know probably many of us are, right? Because the grass is greener on the other side. It means it's not really greener on the other side. All of us are experiencing things, depending. Some days better than others. And so if you are experiencing a difficult time at the moment, that's a great something to keep in mind, right? Good morning. Nothing lasts forever, not even your problems. So if that can just resonate in your mind, and it's true, all things must pass, good and bad. Good morning, everyone. Denise joining us with a nice sunshine emoji. And Michael, good morning. I made it because the little lady is at work. LOL. That's awesome. And perspective is everything. That is true for sure. Thanks for joining us, Michael. And Maurice, good morning with a sunshine emoji. And Monique, good morning, Sudbury. Hand clapping. So must be happy for sure. And it is Monday. We're back for another week, right? Another week on this September the 18th, 2023. Denise, you are harvesting and putting our beds down for the winter. Yes, we are harvesting and putting our beds down for the winter in terms of gardening, I'm sure. Talking about the frost, right? Make sure to protect your garden as there is a risk of frost tonight and into tomorrow. Okay, so sorry I'm blocked from sharing in groups. Bless our day. That's Denise. So yeah, that can happen sometimes, and good. It's a thing. Sometimes we share our mind. We share what's on our minds, and sometimes groups, they have the community standards, right? And even if you don't mean to go against them, sometimes if you have an opposing view or you say something that could sound a bit negative, I can see sometimes administrators as well. That's different than Facebook themselves blocking you, because they're usually ambiguous in their, you've done something to go against our community standards and you never know what you did. So I've received a few of those and I'm like, okay, I don't know what to change if you don't tell me what I've done. So I'm sorry if I did something that I'm not sure what it is. But anyways, good morning, Aaron. I was just chatting with you on Messenger. Thanks for joining us this morning. Hope you're having a great morning, along with Stephen. Good morning, exclamation point. And Amanda, good morning, sir. Good morning, Amanda. Thanks for joining us. And Amber, good morning. I finally get to watch. Thanks for letting me know about this. That's Amber, yes. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, so Amanda's on, Amber's on. And let's get started. Let's look into what the heck is going on in Sudbury. First of all, I thought this was interesting, coming from Sudbury.com. I think it was Saturday. And, we're kind of, not really sure what's going on with news these days in Canada. And, some people I shared a comment from a person that I know from LinkedIn that said, hey, what's everyone whining about? Let's just find your way of finding news. And maybe Facebook wasn't the greatest way to get news anyways, right? So not everybody is upset about the changes in our news through government policies and regulations, but laws, I guess. It is what it is. Things are changing. Things have always changed, and we kind of have to go with it. But I thought this was interesting too. Saw this was in my email. If you subscribe to the email for Sudbury.com for news, you would have seen this as well. Dear reader, we are currently experiencing a major server outage due to a widespread issue with Microsoft servers, which host our news sites. We understand the inconvenience this may cause and want to ensure you that our team is working diligently to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. And what happened? Well, Microsoft servers, which play a crucial role in hosting Sudbury.com's news websites, or Village Media, who owns Sudbury.com, are currently facing a widespread outage across Eastern Canada and the U.S. This unexpected disruption has affected our ability to deliver the latest local news to you. We want to emphasize that this issue is entirely unrelated to recent events, including Bill C-18 or the unfortunate massive newspaper layoffs across Ontario announced Friday by Metroland. Our commitment to you. Please rest assured that we're in constant communication with Microsoft's technical support team, and they are actively working on resolving their server issues. We understand the importance of staying connected and informed, especially during these times, and we sincerely apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused. Our journalists are still actively covering the latest news in the community, but their ability to share that information to our readers is what has been disrupted. When can you expect us back online? Well, it is back online. Spoiler alert. But anyways, this was on Saturday. While we cannot provide an exact time frame for when the issue will be resolved, please know that we are doing everything within our power to expedite the process. Our top priority is to ensure that you have access to the latest news and updates as soon as possible. We truly appreciate your patience and understanding during this challenging time. Our team is committed to delivering the high quality news content you rely on, and we will continue to work tirelessly until our services are fully restored. Thank you for being a valued member of our online community, and we look forward to serving you again shortly. That is Sudbury.com, and that is just something that struck me as a bit odd in terms of the things that we are experiencing with, news in general and what's been happening. Like, again, back in the day, you wouldn't have had your cable shut off for whatever time. Like, it's very rare that from the head end of delivering news, they would say, well, sorry, we can't even deliver news because satellites are down or something, right? Do you ever remember like blackouts, being able to get information, even back in the, almost prehistoric days of just getting it from TV, right? Like, you don't remember that happening very much. But just recently, it just seems like, the news industry is shrinking. Many, many layoffs. I remember the Sudbury Star had hundreds of employees here in town, a huge building, and then scaled down to tens of employees. And now I think they're in the single digits in town pretty much, and don't even have an office space, don't even have a brick and mortar space. That's just the Sudbury Star. That's just one outlet, one news outlet locally. And you see this happening all over the world as well. So now you're seeing, if a server goes down from the provider, that means somebody has the ability to just flick a switch and news just goes off. You know what I mean? Like, once news becomes more and more in the hands of fewer and fewer into the time where it's into the hands of one, the one can just shut it off or just say whatever they want. And I just think this is kind of an unprecedented time that we're in, where something like that can happen, right? Microsoft servers, how many news organizations do you think are using Microsoft servers? And how many other companies do you think there are out there that can handle large news outlets with their servers, right? That's what I mean. I think it's getting less and less, and they're in the hands of the few, and that puts, news in a vulnerable situation. Not only do we have our government here telling us that they want news organizations to be paid from these outlets, right? And then the result is that just news isn't there anymore. That was the result, right? So whether or not they were trying to do something benevolent, we had something not so great happen to, and going to be happening in the future, to a lot of smaller news outlets, those that don't have ties, that are paid by the government. These are the people I think you want out there looking into news, right? But those that are on the show quite often have heard me say the exact same thing, maybe too much. So let's just move on. Good morning, Claire. Thanks for joining us. Much appreciated. And Michael says it's capitalism taking control. Well, capitalism has been here already, right? So we've seen capitalism already pre all of this. So if it was capitalism, that would have already happened, right? So maybe it's something else other than capitalism. Maybe it's the new replacement for capitalism that we're seeing, right? That so many people are anxious to get into. Get a ham radio, Denise says. Yeah, that is true. You definitely want to communicate in times when everything may go down. Like, let's say the internet. They're talking a lot about cyber attacks coming up shortly, or solar flares from the sun affecting our internet. And if the internet goes down, just imagine that. Where do you do your banking? Where do you get your information from? How do you communicate with others? You know, it's all coming to this phone we hold in our hands. And if that goes down, what's everyone going to do? Just remember the last time you lost your phone and how that felt, or got stolen or broken or whatever. They only like to suppress the truth. Funny thing with the truth is always, there's always a way, with the truth, it always finds a way to its people, I guess you can say. We are living proof of that. The only good part about that is that it exposes their criminality. There will be a day and that they will be held accountable. And again, that you could say, a lot of people listening to the show could say, you know, that it's on the in the spectrum of conspiracy theory, possibly the way that that was worded. And it looks like we're having radio issues. Got to have an issue every day with something, right? So today it's the radio. Last week it was Facebook, and YouTube freezing. So today radio is having an issue. So I apologize they won't hear me apologizing, anyone listening to the radio. However, we'll hope, it looks like now we're having an issue with our Facebook as well. So, interesting stuff. Yeah, it is what it is. Just speaking of communication in general and when it goes down, right? So, this is a good example of that. You lost your internet connection. Reconnecting in seconds. There you go. Speaking of internet, I'm losing it. So, funny thing happened on the way to doing a radio show, I guess. Radio used to cover TV outages. In your case, email stepped in to cover for online publication. New media requires new systems in place for sure. And new vulnerabilities, right? That we are going to be seeing happening. Retribution at some point, yes. Okay, well, let's hope the internet fixes itself and everything can come back online. Not sure what's going to happen there. I don't know how to fix it mid-flight in the show. YouTube is fine, thank you, for sure. Smoke signals soon, yeah. I guess we're going to go way back to how we used to communicate, right? So let's just hope the internet resolves itself and we're back online on the radio, and we can only hope for the best here. So let's get to some of the local headlines, courtesy of all of the news organizations via Sudbury.news, where we have our news aggregator. Looks like we may be back up online on the radio. I apologize for that little bit of a blackout. We're not sure exactly what happened there, but if you can hear me and send me a message, please, Tina, if it is indeed back online, I'd appreciate knowing that. So anyways, local headlines via Sudbury.news. It's our news aggregator where all local news is found in one convenient location. If the internet's working, right? So protesters demand immigration status for all. That's coming from, yeah, it's back in, looks like. Back on. Thank you very much. Okay. A lot of dings. If you're driving, that wasn't your phone. Listening on the radio, that was on my end. And we have to have monitors basically listening to the radio, so that way if it goes out, we can troubleshoot it, right? Because there's been many a time when there's been an issue and we didn't know about it and the radio's been off for the whole show kind of thing. So protesters demand full immigration status for all foreign workers and students struggling to access housing and health care. That's from Sudbury.com. As you see, the federal government upping the ante with immigration and bringing more and more people. You can see the result of that with our housing. It makes a real issue, the housing crisis, if you will. And we don't have enough housing. And then costs go up and then rents go up as there's no places to rent and no places to buy. It's hard to build. There's a lot of costs involved. So it's taking us a long time to come up with solutions. It's almost like whoever is in charge of the immigration policies is like, what is it, incompetence or is it on purpose, right? It's always the question I ask. So when you make an immigration policy where you say, we're going to bring the most people that's ever been brought to this country in a small period of time in history, and then that's all you say, and it's not part of a bigger plan where it's like, yeah, but we need places for them to live. And then when it's like, hey, there's a housing crisis, rents are going through the roof, and what are we going to do? It's like, we didn't think of that, kind of thing, right? Sorry for that, by the way. I really shouldn't do that, but that's just, I can't help myself sometimes. So if you made that policy and you didn't think ahead to think, well, maybe before we do this, we have to kind of put some things in place to build some places for them to live. Because in Canada, we live in houses. So if we're going to bring people here and promise them the Canadian dream, you'd think part of the Canadian dream is you have a place to live. So I just don't know. Incompetence or on purpose? I don't know a lot of times. I just put that out there. What the heck happened with that? But anyways, here you go, right? And so, and that's not even really what the story is about. These are people coming into the country demanding full status and, well, it is part of it, housing and the full health care as well, right? So what is the economic pros and cons to an accelerated immigration policy to bring as many people here in a short period of time as possible? Housing is only one. So housing is only one issue. There's the healthcare issue. There's the process of becoming, full citizen, Canadian citizen. Like I remember helping a few new Canadians because I have quite a few new Canadian or potential new Canadian friends. And they've asked my help. And I remember calling the government department that deals with that immigration. And it's worse than any other kind of experience I've had with being on hold and not being able to get through to anybody and just listening to that same song that just keeps repeating when you're on hold with any organization or government department. So I've had an interesting experience with Eastlink recently too, just being on hold for, 4 hours until I gave up. And I'm like, wow, how do we get here? We have the ability to communicate more than any other time in history. And yet we do such a terrible job of communication with all of that. Anyways, so a lot of comments coming in here, Belinda. People that are lifelong Canadian citizens that have paid into the system their entire life, they cannot afford homes and they are losing their homes. No offense, but shouldn't this take precedence? For sure. And there is no offense in that, right? Because you would think if you paid into a system your whole life that you would think there would be benefits from that, right? And then if the government then says, hey, we're going to bring a lot of new people to the table last minute, that obviously they didn't have a chance to pay into our system because they didn't even know they'd be here. And then the strain that it puts on, there is no precedence being given to those who have paid their whole lives into it, right? So that's not even an emotional thing. That's just a fact. But it could upset you if you put all your money into something, even long-term care, right? You think, wow, when I retire and I'm in a long-term health care, I'm going to get the best treatment because I've kind of set aside money so that I can get the best treatment. And look, no, you're not. Doesn't matter how much money you get, you're not getting good treatment or money you have. You're a one-man show, which is true. Crew and talent simulcasting over these platforms and 2 telecom technologies, internet and radio, in video and audio and print. We have a wealth of outlets, but worry when one goes out. Yeah, no, not necessarily. As you just saw, the internet itself, right, controlled everything that I do. So if the internet goes out, which is one thing, it kiboshes all those things you just said. So if we're all dependent on that, right? So if you control the method of delivery, then you can control everything. Okay, so Claire says, that sounded great. Don't apologize. Oh, thank you very much. And good morning, Mona. Thanks for being with us. Much appreciated. Hope you're having a great Monday. Belinda says that's how many countries are sinking because their elite governments keep taking in immigrants that we can't afford. And now many people can't retire. So not many people can retire today. And that is true too, right? So, and it's not that Canadians are saying we are better than anybody else, or that we think we're superior, which is the same thing as saying we're better than anyone else, in any way, shape, or form, or that no one else is allowed, because we're all immigrants, really. Even going back to the Indigenous, or at some point, they didn't just get here. I mean, they didn't just spring up from Turtle Island. They got here. So even if you go way, way, way back, you came from somewhere. You know, we're all immigrants in the world, not just speaking of Canada. And our people kind of emigrated all through history, going different places. But we're here now, and these are the issues that affect us in this country economically as we deal with immigration in real time in our day. Right? So these are the things that we're looking at, and not thinking that anyone is better than anyone else. It's just, if you are planning something, you don't want to do something good for someone that makes it bad for someone else. You want to do something that's good for everybody. And you can do that if it's the right planning goes into something, right? So Michael says the internet is not just one piece, but multifaceted. And that is true as well. But at the same time, you know, it comes through a pipeline, and if someone shuts off the pipeline from the head, it can shut everything off, right? So, yeah, a lot of power is going through that, and we're depending on it. We're depending on electricity, first of all, for everything, and the internet. And so we're making ourselves more and more vulnerable. If you were looking at a financial portfolio, you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And you're putting your society in a very vulnerable state. I do feel sorry for these people that are promised better life, for sure. And when they get here, there is no better life. Canadians are not living their better life, and we are in complete survival mode and getting to be more and more so in the future, for sure. Okay, so continuing on with a few of our, it's the Sudbury hosts the 42nd annual Terry Fox Run. This is from CTV Northern Ontario. Runners and walkers laced up their shoes in Sudbury on Sunday for a cause dear to many, to one day beat cancer. So that story is on CTV Northern Ontario. It's shared on our news aggregator page, which is our home page. You can check that out. I don't even know why that story is there. This really doesn't even make any sense. But anyways, okay, so let's see here, more local news. So, well, not local, this is national. We'll just go along because it's here. So national needs bureaucracy-free plan. That's Pierre Poilievre. We're talking about the conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, says his housing plan would remove bureaucracy to award municipalities for reaching housing targets. So I guess following the same plan that Doug Ford has put in place, he agrees with that and would want that more on a national scale. Give municipalities targets to achieve for housing, and then give them some type of funding if they are able to reach those targets, which to me is a solution which could have possibly been done way before, but it seems like the massive immigration policies come mainly from liberal NDP camps. And then the conservatives are saying, okay, well, we need housing. How are we going to do it? So their plan is to get housing this way. So they're coming from two different parties, right? So it would be nice if the one party that created the issue or wanted the immigration to help one thing, maybe the economy, right? We don't have enough workers in Canada would be the thing. Our birth rate is going down. So we need more people to stimulate the economy. So yeah, that's true. So that's good. So let's get more people over here. Let's kind of accelerate some of the processes, which truly does take forever, by the way. That needed to be reformed, the immigration process for people to become citizens. It's wow, that needed a lot of reform. But then just jamming people through a bottleneck to get people here is going to create problems, right? So now you have one party doing that, and the other party's going to go, wait a minute, we need to create some housing. So we came up with a plan to do that, and that's give incentives to municipalities to be able to build houses. Again, all coming from government money, by the way, which is your money. And I don't know how well thought out this whole thing was or is, but we're going to see the results of it. We are seeing the results of it right now. I forgot I'm going to Sudbury Tuesday to the gym. Okay. Well, we'll let everybody read that on the comments just because it's Canada is a sinking ship, and yet they keep piling on the passengers kind of thing, right? And there is a march coming up. I think on tomorrow's show, I'll talk about it a little bit more. On the 20th, there's a march for the children coming up on the 20th. And I may have a little bit more for that. Maybe I can prepare a little bit more for tomorrow's show, just in anticipation for that coming up on, I believe it is Wednesday. So I just want to let everybody know that I am aware of that, because I do get some messages letting me know. And okay, so Nickel Belt MP Mark Sede named to pair of parliamentary secretary roles. So he's both humbled and grateful to have been presented with those two appointments and would like to thank the Prime Minister for his confidence. So that's from the Sudbury Star. You can read about Mark Sede. He's the current MP for Nickel Belt, Liberal. He's been there pretty much ever since Justin Trudeau has been in office. And now he'll have a couple secretary roles. So not just leaving him out to pasture, he's putting him to work. And Mark Sede is a good man. I know him personally. And so I hope that he enjoys the new appointments and is able to dig in and get some things done. Okay, so let's just see. We gotta, maybe we're gonna look into we talked about national politics. I think this whole show, not even really meaning to, but I guess the first story kicked it right off on the aggregator. So yeah, for sure. The march will be going on all over Canada. So I'll have to check it out and see what it's definitely for a good cause. And I know tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more about that, what it's about. I know there's a lot of opposition towards it as well. So we'll talk about what the march is about, why there's opposition, who the opposition are, who the people are organizing this march, and all of that, so that way people can just hear it instead of hearing news bites afterwards of they're bad, they're good, and this is why they're bad, and this is why they're good, and go on with your life kind of thing. So had a couple videos lined up here. This is, again, Street Politics Canada. I think they do a good job in, again, just trying to hold our government accountable is like, I don't know, can we even do that? But at least getting some information out there about what's going on is one way to at least talk about it and not shut down news. And so you can't even hear, or just certain news, and actually hear some things that you may not be aware. If you listen to certain news organizations, the ones that are funded by the government mainly, you may not hear things criticizing or critiquing the government to the point where you may want to do that with your tax dollars, paying for their salaries to govern the country and making policies like we just talked about affecting you each and every day. You may want to hold them a little bit more accountable. And I find news organizations, or at least media organizations like this one, at least do that. So we'll be back right after
After
this.
months of anticipation, Trudeau and Housing Minister Sean Fraser stepped up to the microphone for what was billed as a major announcement to shake up Canada's housing crisis. With the Liberal caucus meeting in London and the party trailing the Conservatives in the polls ahead of the next election, there was pressure to take action on housing costs that have turned voters away. Fraser had promised the government's action plan would be the first time that we've done something like this in Canada. Canadians tuned in with bated breath, hoping for a solution to the sky-high home prices plaguing the nation. But when Fraser finally revealed the details, the response was one of mass disappointment, rather than the eagerly awaited grand plan. The reality was a plan that did little more than scratch the surface and did not satisfy internal party critics calling for change. Canadians were left wondering, is this really the best our leaders can do to address the affordable housing emergency with elections looming? Welcome back to Street Politics Canada. Please take a minute to like and subscribe. Your support makes our work possible. Trudeau made the announcement while meeting with the Liberal caucus in London. There have even been rumblings of dissatisfaction within the caucus about Trudeau's leadership, with many Liberal MPs sounding their concerns both publicly and anonymously. By focusing on housing during this retreat, it's clear the Liberals feel pressure to address rising costs that are turning younger voters to the Tories. However, critics point out the $74 million for housing in London isn't new funding. Rather, it's simply the first time the Liberals have allocated from their $4 billion housing fund, which was originally proposed back in 2021. While Trudeau and the Liberals touted this $74 million investment in London as new funding, the reality is this money was already committed over a year ago as part of their original $4 billion Housing Accelerator Fund announcement in 2021.
The housing minister also earlier today said that essentially we would be seeing this never before seen in Canada announcement from the Prime Minister today, setting expectations very high, and then only to be sort of fallen flat by the fact that the Prime Minister announced new funding, or sort of money from old funding that's finally coming more than a year later than it was supposed to be, according to the federal government's own budgeting. And so I think when you're seeing the soaring rhetoric from the housing minister talking about big things coming, and then we're seeing such incremental announcements coming from the Prime Minister and him when they actually get to the podium, I think there's even more questions then about what they actually plan to do, how they plan to do it, and how quickly they'll do it.
So the funding itself is not actually new. They're simply allocating funds from this pre-existing multi-billion-dollar pledge. In fact, the application process for cities to access this money closed way back months before this latest announcement. So London was essentially selected from proposals that were submitted earlier in the year. Trudeau and the Liberals are spinning it as a new investment, but critics argue they're just playing catch-up in distributing aid that was promised long ago. Getting the money out the door took nearly 18 months from the fund's initial budget commitment. That shows how slowly this program has moved, despite the supposed urgent need to boost housing supply. By contrast, the size of the London funding, $74 million, remains tiny compared to the billions sitting in the overall accelerator fund that still hasn't been allocated. It really calls into question whether Trudeau has a real strategy to expedite housing construction at the scale that's needed. So while this announcement allowed Trudeau to tout action, the reality is the acceleration fund was long delayed. Cities had to wait over a year for guidelines, and the portal closed months ago. The funding recycled for London does little overall to advance the scale of home building increases experts say are urgently needed. Some Liberal MPs have also voiced frustration with housing affordability. Even London West MP Ariel Kayabada, who earns over $185,000 as a parliamentarian, has said she can afford to buy in her own city. With internal party pressures and the looming election, Trudeau clearly felt a need to have a housing announcement. But the details suggest it may be more about optics than actual progress towards making homes attainable for Canadians. The Canadian Housing and Mortgage Corporation, Fraser's own federal agency, says all levels of government need to build 3.5 million more homes by 2030 to restore affordability. Yet this first announcement from the fund is barely a drop in the bucket towards that target. Aladab Yalworth from the CHMC told Global News, "We need a drastic increase in housing supply to get to affordability. Let's get back to work." Trudeau challenged other mayors to apply for funding too. But the reality is the accelerator funds stopped accepting applications months ago. And the federal plan still lacks specifics on how it will lower home prices, which Trudeau admits are too high. One thing is clear. One order of government can't solve this crisis alone. It will take real collaboration and ambition from all levels of leadership. Now to compound issues. Trudeau and the federal government are imposing costly new energy regulations on home construction that threaten to price even more people out of the market. Starting this decade, rules to reduce emissions for new builds will increase average home costs by $55,000 nationwide by 2030. In Alberta, prices are estimated to jump $35,499. This as the province experiences record migration and housing prices already grew 16% in a single year. With the median individual income in Calgary at $44,250, 3/4 of residents earning under $80,000, these regulations pose a serious barrier. Premier Danielle Smith has criticized imposing such high costs during economic stress as irresponsible, and rightfully so. For most families, this will translate to tens of thousands more debt just to enter the market, but it gets worse. The Fraser Institute finds these regulations will reduce overall economic activity by 1.8% as the true costs are passed down across sectors. In Alberta specifically, GDP will shrink 1.2% starting in 2026. All of this, just to lower emissions a meager 0.9%, according to federal projections. That means on a per-unit basis, the cost to reduce emissions this way is about 50 times higher than Canada's existing $50 per ton carbon tax. The Parliamentary Budget Office also warns a $170 per ton tax alone may cause oil and gas GDP to plunge over 10% by the end of this decade. With the immense economic burden and minimal environmental returns, it's reasonable to ask if these policies are truly worth it. Policymakers must consider more balanced approaches that don't price the middle class out of a basic need like shelter. The federal government's existing plans simply aren't moving fast or meaningfully enough. Trudeau's government will need to find cooperative solutions to expand supply, support first-time buyers, and relieve cost pressures. Otherwise, many Canadians face years more of unattainable home prices. With no end in sight to this prolonged housing crisis, it's time for leadership that puts people's lives and livelihoods ahead of political showmanship. In stark contrast, during Poilievre's speech addressing more than 2,500 Conservative delegates congregated in Quebec City for the party's convention this month, a key part of Pierre Poilievre's speech to Conservative delegates was addressing the issue of housing affordability in Canada. He emphasized that the escalating cost of living and nearly impossible path to home ownership had become the harsh reality for many Canadians under Justin Trudeau's Liberal government. Poilievre laid out his vision for a more affordable housing system by removing unnecessary red tape and government delays that artificially restrict supply and inflate prices. By pledging common-sense reforms, Poilievre hopes to win over many Canadians who have been left behind in today's red-hot real estate market. Ultimately, the timing and nature of Trudeau's housing announcements raise questions about whether the Liberals are truly making decisions with the best interests of Canadians in mind, or if they are more focused on salvaging their own political fortunes in the face of declining support. Their quote-unquote big reveal in London coincided with the Liberal caucus retreat, as polls continue to place them behind the Conservatives. If this latest plan follows the same pattern as others under the Liberals, moving too slow and delivering too little impact, it will most likely do more harm than good. Actions must speak louder than words, and so far Trudeau and the Liberals' track record is one of empty words and false promises. What do you make of the conference held in London? Do you believe in the plan set by Trudeau and the Liberal government to alleviate the housing crisis? Let me know in the comments below.
Okay, and there you have it. So, anyways, one person's commentary on how the federal government has been, dealing with their own policies to bring in record numbers of people to this country, and how has that been working for us, basically, right? So, and on the front here, let's see what we got. Yeah, and there you go. So also, along the same lines of critique, I guess you could say, criticism, critique, there's a fine line sometimes at the same, but you also need to hear, not just, people clapping all the time, or you have to hear people
Right after just
actually talking about, being critical or critiquing and holding accountable on policies. And, actually that's what media used to do all the time. It just sounds like it's divided now, where you only have, certain media outlets criticizing, and then the other ones are just applauding everything. You know what I mean? It's very divided. So here you have the other side that you won't hear on government-sponsored media, right? So that's the only reason why I'm doing this here. I could sit here and go say all the good things as well, which I do try to do as well. But I do have to get the other voice out there as well and do the best that I can to do that, because it's the only time you'll more than likely hear any of this. If you're driving in your car, especially listening to the radio, you won't hear anything like this.
You might remember in 2015, right after Justin Trudeau had been sworn in as Prime Minister for the first time, he got in his limo, he went down Sussex Drive to the Pearson Block, which is where Global Affairs Canada, our Foreign Affairs Department, has its headquarters. He walked into the atrium, it's 2 floors, and people just fell all over him. They cheered. These supposedly objective bureaucrats who are supposed to serve any prime minister, regardless of party, in a very objective way, fell all over him as though he were some sort of Korean boy band member and they were teenage girls. It was one of the most disgusting displays I've ever seen by bureaucrats in favor of one party and one leader over another. But this was because they were so sure Justin Trudeau was going to bring Canada back on the world stage. That bad, mean Stephen Harper, he'd ruined our foreign relations because he was a warmonger. He was a bad man. He had bad relations with a lot of great countries like China. And Justin Trudeau was going to solve that. Well, as we've seen now from Justin Trudeau's second disastrous trip to India, this time for the G20 meeting last week, Justin Trudeau is a foreign affairs failure, period. And not just because his plane wouldn't start and he had to wait 3 days to get a replacement plane so he could get back home. That's immaterial. I remember one time in 1979, Joe Clark went on a Middle East tour to show how important he was, how serious he was in foreign affairs, and his luggage got lost. And that became the story of the trip. But he did prove that he did know something about foreign affairs. Trudeau went to India and proved he knows nothing about foreign affairs. Nothing. There's a great shot from the G20 meeting of Azali Assoumani, president of the Comoros Union. Now, I had to look up Comoros. I don't know where it was. It is a country consisting of 3 islands off the coast of Madagascar. And there is Prime Minister Modi of India giving his great warm welcome to a man who's the head of a country of 800,000 people with a GDP that is 0.1% of Canada's. Assoumani gets this big welcome from Modi. Trudeau gets the cold shoulder. And that's because Trudeau has been patronizing towards Modi in all of their relations together. And he refuses to do anything about the Khalistani separatist movement in Canada, which is largely funded by Indo-Canadians of Sikh origin. And it's causing problems for the Indian government. Now, I think a lot of the things that the Khalistani movement does in Canada are free speech. You get to have a referendum about whether or not you'd like your homeland to separate from India. It may be embarrassing to the Indian government. And Trudeau can admit that to Modi. But he can't stop people from having a free expression of their views in Canada, nor should he try. But Trudeau patronizes Modi. He treats him as though he were the prime minister of an inferior country, despite the fact that India has 1.4 billion people and GDP that is greater than ours. Trudeau treats him like the little brother or an inferior person who is just standing there waiting for Canadian largesse. And if I were Modi, I would be ticked too. So Modi has done everything he can. First in the 2018 trip that Trudeau took with the costumes and the dancing, the fool's trip, the Bollywood trip of India. And now Modi has done the same things. He pushed Trudeau over to the sidelines at the G20 and nobody tried to rescue him. Biden seems to have lectured him from the United States point of view. And Trudeau has done everything he can in his 8 years as Prime Minister to destroy Canada's foreign relations. He was going to be the great savior. The people at the Pearson Bloc, that first day he went there, thought that he was their god on foreign relations. But he has been a complete and total buffoon. For Post Media, I'm Lauren Gunter.
And there are many, many people out there who do feel the same way and are feeling the crunch of many things that have been implemented through his government during the time that he's been in power. And I think you can go through a whole list. So the massive immigration without proper thinking of how to deal with it. The inflation. I know there was one comment here. I think it was Michael saying, yeah, but he inherited a COVID world that the supply chain was interrupted for everybody in every country or whatever. But we had the most draconian response to the pandemic than any other country too. It's like his handling of things in this country are different than other countries, and so we are facing things that are unique to Canada as well through the way that the solutions that he's had and policies that he's made and his government has made. And it's a coalition pretty much now too, right? So it's not only him. He has to adopt the policies and the wantings of the NDP as well. So it's the NDP Liberal Party that's running the country as a coalition, the two of them together. So he has to bow to them and their wants and needs. So it becomes an even far lefter agenda than would be even if it was just his own, right? So we're seeing this and we're seeing the results of it. And if your life is better off now because of the policy of Trudeau, then it's good. So you are in a better place. You're, whether it's economically or socially or anything, the climate of the country, not speaking the heat but the social climate of the country. Are people getting along more now? We're all singing Kumbaya with the sunny ways, what has his prime ministership done for Canada? Are we in a better place than when he started? COVID was purposely sinking mom and pop businesses. Big box stores survived or strived for sure. Okay, so tomorrow we'll be talking more about, I think, the march you're referring to, Denise, there. So I'm not sure. I will be working during it, so I won't be able to take any time off to let you know. But I'll do my best to discuss the issues that are going on with it. And it is something that seriously, I myself have children and children that just graduated school. And so I was listening to a lot of the stuff they were being taught through school. And my daughter herself would probably come on the show and speak to the things that she was being told as she was going through school. She'd love to do that. And a lot of people, have different opinions about it, but she actually went through it. So she knows exactly what she was exposed to and taught, and definitely knew the other side. So she wasn't as, she knew. She could see it for what it was. She wasn't just being open to anything being told to her, right? So she knew that there was agendas in school. There's an indoctrinating side to school, not just teaching math and English and science. There's a cultural appropriation of, trying to get us to believe certain things, morals and values, on top of what, school has been taking that on as their responsibility to teach a more, if you will, moral, ethical, rather than just teaching math and science and English, that's what school is supposed to do, and allow the others to be taught in the homes, right? So, but they're the parents now, and they're actually in a war with parents, as you can see that's happening pretty much on Wednesday, and we'll talk about that. The school system is at war with parents. Like, what the heck? Why is that even a thing? Like, how did that even happen? So yeah, we'll talk about more tomorrow. And thanks, Stephen. I noticed your comments very big. You'll have to check in tomorrow about the same sentiments that you shared. That's what we'll be talking about. So please make sure to share those tomorrow. And we'll be back same time, same place, God willing, right here on CKLU 96.7 FM, Facebook, and YouTube, hopefully. We'll see you then. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching, and we will see you tomorrow. Ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.